Renault Geely internal combustion engine project, Mahle and Deutz hydrogen engine project, Genesis G90 taking on the German Big Three, Neo NCAP 5-star result, TTW in-house training academy, Paris attempting to ban SUVs, battery recycling factory in the UK, and Giga Castings becoming more popular. Hello and welcome to this week's MotorZen News. I'm Paul Callan. French car manufacturer Renault and Chinese car manufacturer Geely are merging 50-50 on an engine building project. They're going to have 17 plants, they're going to have 19,000 employees, they're going to produce 5 million engines and transmissions a year. And some people that I know in the trade, when they heard this news break during the week, are saying to me, there you go, internal combustion engines they're building new factories for them. Well, this is really an amalgamation. What these companies are doing is they don't need anything like as many engines as they used to, and are not going to need as many engines as they used to. So they're consolidating and they're bringing everything together. These engines will be primarily for hybrid and plug-in hybrid vehicles, and they're designed to cover all the brands under the Renault Geely umbrella. So they're going to cover all the Volvo, all the Nissan, all the Mitsubishi, for example, and they're going to serve all the hybrid and plug-in hybrid needs of those brands. Yes, there will be some engines for countries that are not banning internal combustion engines by 2030 or 2035, but primarily it's to meet the hybrid and plug-in hybrid needs of those brands. Mahle is a company that, again, I always said were primarily recognised for making engine components, and in the last number of years we've seen them active a lot more on the electrical side of cars. Well, they're going back to the roots in this project because they're joining up with Deutz to build components for hydrogen engines, internal combustion hydrogen engines, ICE engines. So again, is it now get our hopes up again that the internal combustion lives on? Well, to a certain extent, yes. This is initially going to be for stationary engines that Deutz require. So the first batch of engines for 2024 will be stationary engines, but Deutz are saying that they will roll out hydrogen engines for construction and agricultural equipment. But again, I suppose if anything, we looked in some previous shows at John Deere, who are saying hydrogen and internal combustion engines were going to be the way to go for plant. And it looks like Deutz are following in the same path. Because it looked at the time that maybe John or JCB were on their own with this concept, but now Deutz seem to be following this concept. And if we remember back to what JCB were saying, it was kind of simple enough. Traditionally, if you have a machine working on a site, you drop a diesel bowser on that site to fuel the vehicle while it's working. In this instance, you drop a hydrogen bowser on the site to fuel the vehicle. So the accessibility or the ability to get the hydrogen is not the same as a vehicle is travelling on a road system. So again, it's the wide array of applications that we're seeing, and different applications for different types of requirements. Genesis, which is I suppose you could call it the Lexus brand of Kia and Hyundai, they're launching their G90. They're showing it at Goodwood at the moment. And this G90 it has existed in America. It is out of America, but it's a competitor, or they say it's the competitor to a BMW 7 Series, to a Mercedes S-Class, and to an Audi A8. So fairly rarefied competition there on that one. They will have a short wheelbase and a long wheelbase model. The car dimensions on the short is 5.275 mil, on the long is 5.465 mil, so it's actually bigger than an S-Class. An S-Class comes in at 5.179 or 5.289. So going to run a 3.5 litre V8, they think, with 375 brake horsepower on the short wheelbase, 409 brake horsepower on the long wheelbase, and it's going to incorporate a 48-volt E supercharger and 4-wheel drive. They haven't released prices on this yet. The S-Class in Germany is coming in at around 111,000. The 7 Series comes in around 116,000. The A8 comes in around 110. The Genius the Genesis is available in America at roughly around €80,000. So can't see that it's going to really do any harm to the big three, but Genesis seem to be at least taking them on. If the vehicle has all the features and qualities, but it just doesn't have the brand cachet, I suppose that's the difference. NIO, Chinese manufacturer. If anybody was worried about the quality or the design features of Chinese vehicles, they need to take a look at this story. NIO, which is, we don't think we've seen any of them in Ireland, and I haven't seen any of them in the UK, but I have seen some of them in Italy and Germany. ET5, their sedan, and EL7, their SUV, are just after receiving a 5-star NCAP rating. And remember this is the first vehicles that go through the new NCAP rating, which is much more stringent than the previous tests. They've said it's got outstanding active and passive safety systems on it. It's got the first EV to have ultra long LiDAR, which is going to give it better view of the road ahead to assist in autonomous driving, but that also assists now in improving the capabilities of its current collision avoidance systems. It also has a system on it that applies the brake after an impact. So they're saying that it will automatically apply the brake if the vehicle's been in an impact to avoid a secondary collision. So that's a new feature. But again, the assumption would be that Chinese vehicles are not of European standard. Well, this clearly blows that myth out of the water, because the results that the NIOs have just got on the new NCAP rating is quite impressive. TTW and Swords Truck and Trailer Works has opened a new in-house academy for training its own staff, and Ricky Burke, the MD of that company, has come out and said part of our ongoing investment in our staff is that every member will receive 1 day's training per month. And I think this is a really interesting initiative, and I think it's something that an industry that is crying out for people needs to change how it goes about acquiring and retaining people, and this is a real good step in doing that. It constantly puzzles me that I'm being asked in the industry, do you know of any mechanics? Can you get any staff? And there is zero initiatives within those organisations to bring on people, to encourage people to reach out and communicate with people, and then also the people they also have working for them. There's no efforts going into retaining them, to evolving them, to developing them. And I think all people that work in our industry have to rethink how they approach their people, or how they approach getting new people. And I think initiatives like this is a real good starting point for that. There's an example I always remember where in 2009, 2010, when the crash came, I went to what I would have regarded as a very high quality independent workshop in Ireland. And I remember asking the service manager, foreman, very hands-on guy, would he have to let people go? And he made a statement to me, and I hadn't heard it in a very long time, and I've never forgotten it. He said, there's guys out there that served their time under me or to me, and they won't be going. And I remember thinking, yeah, he's put effort into training these guys to a very high standard, and they're a very valuable resource, and he's going to do everything he can to hold that resource. I think that's the thinking we have to start to develop going forward. Paris is introducing a new initiative to fight pollution. It's bringing in a higher parking fee for SUVs, larger, heavier, thirstier vehicles. So again, people I talked to in the trade criticise this, but when you look at this, government are squeezing out certain types of vehicles, certain types of propulsion. You can see how they can do these things over time. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to penalise SUVs by bringing in higher parking fees. Now, Leon has already introduced this, or it's certainly released the date as to what it's introducing in the next year or so. Paris says that the SUVs have gone up by 60% in the last 4 years. So they're clearly identifying this as some sort of phenomenon in the buying public. But they're saying, hey, we're going to do some of this. And the French have always been renowned for producing really interesting, fun, small cars, city cars. So obviously government are trying to get back to that. Lyon was bringing out, which is the third largest city in Paris, said that their EV parking charge for a month would be €14. But the charge for an internal combustion vehicle that exceeds 1,725 kilos will be triple that. So that's what they're bringing out in Lyon, and probably that's the same type of concept they're going to introduce in Paris. Again, another argument that's constantly made on the EV side of things is that we're digging out all this material to make batteries, and what do we do with it when we don't use them anymore? And I suppose as I look at this and I talk to everybody around it and I try and see what direction is it going in, I'm kind of the opinion at some point we won't need to dig out any more raw materials because we'll have enough, and we'll then be in a recycle loop. That means we have enough materials. And there's a new factory opening in the UK, the first industrial scale EV battery recycling plant. It's in Wolverhampton, and it's going to recycle 8,300 tons of lithium every year is the capacity. It's also going to recover steel, aluminium, copper, nickel, manganese and cobalt. So when you look at this, eventually once it has enough old batteries coming in, it's going to produce sufficient volumes of recycled material to go back out and produce new batteries. That's my logic to this situation. My logic says to me at some point we're not going to have to dig up natural resources anymore because we'll have such a good recycling system in place. They are going to open 6 more plants within the next 5 years. So this is serious business. This is big business. This makes good business sense, obviously. So therefore, the whole idea of recycling and reusing all these materials is clearly on the agenda, and it clearly answers that question: what happens to the batteries when they're no longer able to be used in the cars? Giga Casting is a word that you hear around a lot now. It was introduced by Tesla. It's producing components for cars in aluminium castings rather than in pressed steel components. The Model Y, they say, would have had eliminated 140 pressed steel components by using this process. It seems to be in the last couple of years that Tesla's ability to drop the price of their cars clearly demonstrated that they had very big margins, and it looks like other manufacturers have worked out that the reason they've got big margins is because of this process, and it looks like more manufacturers are going to use this process. Toyota and GM have clearly stated they're going to start to use this Giga Casting process on their new EV products. This in turn will mean there'll be a lot less demand for steel, there'll be a lot less demand for tool and die makers, because you're going to eliminate the need for stampings and press stampings and dies in order to make the components. So another interesting change that's coming, again being driven by Tesla, in that it's taking these new ways of doing things. That's it for this week, and thanks for tuning in. Usual, like, comment and subscribe. We're getting a nice following on LinkedIn, so if you're a regular watcher on LinkedIn, if you could please possibly share with somebody else on your contacts list, or somebody else in the trade or the industry on LinkedIn, we'd really appreciate that, and it would be a big help. Thanks for that. See you next week.